Okay, it's eight. Ooh, what is going on over there? Okay, it is 8 o'clock sharp, and I am officially live on Instagram. And it is time for our coffee chat. And for those of you over here on Instagram, I want you to know every morning, Monday through Saturday, I go live on my Facebook wall and we do a coffee chat. And today we're doing it on Instagram. And you might ask, why are Instagram? Well, because my mom doesn't really do Facebook. And so, mom, Cindy Lulu, um, Susie Real, thank you for being my top supporter. All right, Cindy, come on, come on. Oh, here she comes. There she is. Good morning, mom.
Hi.
Oh my goodness, mom. I tried so hard to come live from outside. I got all this bug spray on because they're kind of bad this morning. And I sat out there for like 2 seconds. I was going to keep praying. And all of a sudden I was like, I can't. I feel like there's flesh eating animals on me right now.
It must not be windy, is it?
Not at all. Like, not, no, none. So I'm back on my little porch at Little Bo Kinsey, which is where I've been coming live every morning. Good morning, mom.
Good morning.
This is so cool, and I'm interested to see how many of the usuals that I have coffee with every morning make their way over from Facebook to here because we do this so regularly on Facebook. But I'm excited to do Instagram.
Yeah, and I mean, I was like, we can do it on Facebook. I just, a couple of years ago when I fasted from Facebook, and then I just never really went back. So the only time I go to Facebook is to watch you do your coffee chats, and that's about it. So
No, I think this is perfect. This is so perfect. And I'm just excited to do this. It's Mother's Day weekend. Obviously, it's kind of a different Mother's Day for most. I know it is for our family. You guys, I just have to tell you the cutest story. On Monday, I think it was, I went down to visit my mom and dad in the morning and have a little coffee with them. And we were talking about all the ways we could do Mother's Day via social distancing. We can do it in the backyard. We can all kind of wave at each other and, but at least we're still together. It's been crazy. Mom, what are you thinking about this Mother's Day that we're going to have this year? It's a little different.
it is a little different. It's really hard too. I think a huge miss for me is not being able to have, you know, Mark's mom. So really my mom, she's literally 3 miles from us. And we just did postcards and we went, oh, we have not seen them since this whole thing started. They literally have been really isolated and protected. And so we broke all codes and we rang the doorbell and we snuck up to the door and we said hello. And I mean, she was almost in tears because I mean, it's really, I think that's the hardest thing for me during any of this is, you know, they're that close, but we can't be with them. Kinsey literally is in Ireland and can't come home, and we couldn't go there if we needed to. And then just some of the stuff, the dynamics with your children, we have to be careful with that because of them going back and forth. So there's just an interesting dynamic. And yet, we just know God's up to something. And so for me to constantly be going, okay, I get to, and what do I get to do in this situation? And I say those words a lot lately because I try to keep myself positive because there's so many people in so many worse situations. But that's the hardest thing. My love language is wrap my family around me up close and personal. And I mean, your kids know they're like, they don't even know what to do when we see each other. We don't run and hug. And I think Landon goes, they're like teaching us to be rude, to not touch each other, to not, and I was like, it kind of feels like that to be rude. You're like, hello from over here. So
Someone already asked, have you guys not seen each other since quarantine? And I'll just say this, we've seen each other, but not really like we're used to. I mean, we live right down the road from each other. So especially the weeks I have the kids, it's game on 24/7, typically, that we get to be together, doing meals together, mom helping me run kids to different activities or watching kids do different activities. So it's been definitely very, very different. And so, and even we were trying to do it where we all just hang out in the backyard, but my mom just can't even help herself. She wants to get her hands all over the kids. I'm like, Mom, that's breaking the law.
it's
But
really hard to watch them play basketball and they bring their own putters and putt some golf and might jump in the pool, but they literally have to get their own towels. And I'm a serving type heart person, so they have to grab their water and then throw their own waters away. And I like to wait on people and serve people. And it's an interesting, it's like retraining your mind. Um, but anyway, little things, but just
Now, Mom,
interaction. But
it's saying your internet is like doing this a little bit, but maybe it's my internet. I just turned the actual Wi-Fi off to make sure that I'm getting good service. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you completely good. And
Perfect. Okay.
mine was still fine, and yours was the one that had a circle going. So I don't know what that means.
All right. Well, I just turned the Wi-Fi off, so maybe it was me, and I'll take that off right now. Guys,
Okay.
here's the deal. I'm so unfamiliar with Instagram. I don't even know like if you can share this, if you can invite people. I'm not quite sure even sometimes what the handles, who they represent. And so make sure when you jump on, you tell us your name, where you're from, and
I care.
she said, she texted me this morning and said her and Brian are sitting there waiting. I was like, you guys are so awesome. And Mom Susie Real has not missed one coffee chat, not one
Oh,
coffee chat live. And she's
good
on here
morning,
this morning.
Susie.
um, okay, so you guys, as we get started, I wanted to kind of give us a minute to get started and make sure people knew we were live. But Mom, I wanted to start out this morning with just kind of sharing a few fun things about you. I told people, as I said, we were going to go live, that we'd share some stories. We'd have some conversation as we drank our tea or coffee, and then that we would even take some questions. So for those of you that are on here with us, we'll get to the questions here in a minute. But I just wanted to take a minute to tell you guys a little bit about my mom. Some of you may know some of these things because you might be closer to me than others. But I think sometimes because of the nature of what our family does for business, often you hear from me, you might hear from my sister, my brother, and my dad, but rarely do you get to hear from my mom. And many of you may think by looking on the outside that I'm so much like my dad. And I am. There's a lot of me that is like my dad. But I want you to know there's probably as much that is like my mom. And I take a ton of pride in that. And quite frankly, I had to work through several things on my journey on in the mom life because I had such an incredible example of a mom. And so, number one, Mom, when I think of you, I think of this fiercely protective, loyal mama bear. Like you are just, when it comes to your family, you are so loyal, and you're just loyal in general. And any of your friends and people that are close to you know that about you. You're probably one of the hardest working people I know. And there's nothing you're not willing to do. For example, you guys, when I was young, my mom had a daycare out of the home. But as we got older and she wanted to be more actively involved in our classroom, she actually started a cleaning business, and she did cleaning. She cleaned people's homes to be able to adapt that around our family schedule and be able to be home if we got sick. I also, my mom has incredible crafting talents. And so whether it was a weekend craft show or she was teaching craft projects in our basement, which was definitely a Michigan basement, maybe a little bit nicer. It didn't have a mud floor, but it was just like cement floor, beams up above. That's probably actually really in right now, but it really wasn't in back then. But her and her best friend Krista would do classes and teach people how to make dried flower arrangements in our basement. I remember many, many years handcrafted presents for Christmas for loved ones. And I remember doing that together, and probably some of the reasons that I do that with my own kids. I will say this, you guys, one of the things that I think I love about you most, Mom, is how you have such a love for the simple. You love the simple. And I think that that's why I treasure some things so much. And I'll get into that here in a minute. You guys, I want you to know that my mom is actually pretty fearless, and she's an adventure, but it's more about, like, if her family wants to do it, she's up for it. She's like, if the family's going to do this, I'm here for it. And, you know, I just think of us whitewater rafting in Yellowstone area last year, you, Dad, and I. Dad was the one that was like in the middle, in the like safe zone. You and I were on the outside, and I was just like, look at my mom. She's here for it. You're willing to do whatever with the kids. As a matter of fact, Lana was talking the other day about you going to treetops with them and being up, even though it didn't end up quite like you wanted it to. She is the most amazing gift giver. You guys, my mom barely shows up everywhere, anywhere without gifts. It doesn't matter who she's with, she brings gifts. And mom, I don't even know if your primary love language is gifts. You're just a gift giver, which I've always kind of thought that's interesting because we tend to do what we love, and so maybe you love gifts more than I've ever realized. But you certainly, it's a way you show love for sure. And you're thoughtful with your gift giving. You're just so thoughtful. Um, before I let you talk here in a minute, I want you to know that your sisters, you guys are so similar. There's so many things you guys are so similar in, whether it's looks or just the way you act or the way you nurture. But one of the greatest gifts for me is to be around you and your sisters because I just you guys are just so unique and so very special, and you love people so hard. And I think it's just one of the greatest gifts. We call them our aunties because they're just the coolest people, and you'd want to be friends with them as well as spend time with them. And then, Mom, I wanted to say this. I have had the unique privilege of taking some very special trips, sometimes with just you, sometimes with you and Dad, especially in this season where I went through my divorce and I do the shared parenting time, which gives me time to take trips that I don't have the kids. And my favorite trip of all time has to be when you came up to Central Michigan when I was in college. And for whatever reason, I don't even remember the specifics. I just remember you were like, want to go to Mackinac Island. It was very spur of the moment. That's my favorite place of all time, probably because it's one of your favorite places. But we literally on a Tuesday afternoon headed to Mackinac Island, found a place on the island to stay, and it still to this day is one of my favorite memories. And then last year, I think for your 60th birthday, being able to go to Prince Edward Island with you and your best friend was also one of those most special moments for me to have, watching you and your best friend together because of the book, and just because you love the simple and you treasure the simple. You're just not, you don't rush. And I love that about you. You're definitely not somebody that has idle hands, that's for sure, but you don't rush. And it's just been such a gift and a privilege to have that special time with you and create those memories. But yeah, I just feel like the luckiest girl in the world that you are my mom, and that I've had the opportunity to learn from you for so long. I've seen you definitely go through hard things, very hard things, and I've seen you um, on the mountaintop, and still every morning, you guys, since I was a little girl, and I don't remember a morning this wasn't the case, that I woke up in the morning and my mom wasn't already awake reading her Bible. Even if I woke up accidentally in the morning too early and I happened to come down and the light was on and my mom was in her little Bible chair reading the Bible, doing her prayers, singing worship. And just such a great example. It's interesting. I was thinking about this morning. One of the priorities that I have with my kids is we do family devotionals in the morning. And that's certainly a practice I learned from you. I can't remember a morning that, whether it was over breakfast, on the car ride in, or what, that we weren't reading devotionals as a family together. And that was something you really prioritized. As a matter of fact, we get in big trouble if our butts weren't in the seats around the breakfast table. She didn't care what we ate for breakfast. She just wanted us there so that we could, our real breakfast, I think, was the word. But Mom, I just love you so much. And there's so many things I treasure about you that you may or may not realize, because you're just someone that, you're behind the scenes. You don't need to be the center of attention. And you sure have a lot of people in your life that love to be the center of attention. And I don't think that you realize enough, or that we tell you enough, or I tell you enough, how very special you are. And I just love you. I'm so glad we got to do this morning.
Yeah, well, thanks for asking me. Gosh, Cami, that was quite the, it's almost hard for me to hear it. Yeah, I'm like, oh, but thank you. That really, all of those things are precious to me too. I think back to 40 years ago when, from a little girl, I knew I wanted to be a mom, a stay-home mom. I had 1 year where my mom stayed home, and that was a memory to me of coming home and she was actually there. And it just clung to me. And I thought, if that's the best year of my childhood that I sticks out, that's what I want to be. And the Lord granted that, and granted a husband who would support that, which was amazing, because we certainly, but by the grace of God, couldn't afford to do that. And yet we felt like we couldn't afford not to do that. And so just remembering, Cami, you coming in to our lives and and it was exceedingly abundantly more than I could have ever asked or imagined to be a mom. And so, and then to be blessed with two more children, and the grandchildren I have, I just, it is what makes my heart tick is my family. And so it's just an honor to be on with you, Cami, to share this coffee time. I've been really proud of you getting on so consistently with this coffee time. I think of how many people want to do a quiet time, but they just can't quite fit it in yet. And I believe by even just coming every day to the table, to the coffee table with their coffee in hand, and just no matter what they look like, just to be able to be fed, is a good thing. And I believe in the long run, they're going to want to do it for themselves because they're going to get hungry and want more and more and more. So I'm just very proud of you for doing that. So now I hope I can have a little minute to share with all of you what Cami was like growing up. Just a few of my special memories, but she, she,
I have
she
no idea what's about to come out of your mouth right now, actually.
well, I started thinking about how so many people do think, you were just like your dad. And she really has tried to kind of fill his boots from the beginning. And we have a picture of her where she's like 2 and he had some cowboy boots and we stuck her legs in them and they literally came to the tops of to your stomach. And you made a way to somehow walk in those. And we just laughed going, oh golly, Lord, she has got such determination. And from there, you were determined that there wasn't a place that you couldn't go. You would get so upset when you could do everything with your dad as far as go to practices with him, and when he was playing baseball you'd sit in the dugout as a young girl and you would talk those guys into letting you run the books, which was hilarious, but you did it great. And you'd get so mad when dad would say, okay, well, the one place you can't go is in the locker room. That would make you so mad, and yet it was like,
Not cool.
no, you cannot go in the locker room.
It makes me think of Skylar when I don't let her have the slumber parties with the boys anymore.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, some things you just can't understand till you understand them. But and then I also think back home, I mean, you becoming a teacher didn't surprise us at all, because your favorite thing to do was make Kyler and Kinsey sit there and do school all day long. I mean, all day. You would never let them control anything. You were in charge. And I just think about how your love to teach people started really early and has turned into even now your coffee chats. But the way you were with your siblings, the way that you nurtured them. We had a funny thing we did one year, and we got Cami a Mother's Day card, and I think you were 11 or 12, and you were like, "Why am I getting a card?" And the other two said, "Because you mother us all the time." And it really was funny because the amount of times I said, "Cami, they have a mother. They don't need you to mother them. They need a sister." But you have that nurturing thing in you that makes you a great mom, but also great at what you do in this realm, because you nurture people, you coach them up, you cheer them on, you're some of their favorite cheerleaders probably. And I think about how God provides that for people that don't have that. He provides different people in our lives, and they come in and they go out, but we all have people we can think about that have been major mentors to us. And certainly for me, I'm one of 6 girls, and I had a single mom who raised me from the age of 5 and up. And I thought of some of the things that she taught us. First of all, she was very short. All of my sisters, with the exception of one is was close to my height. She's now in heaven, but so she's standing taller than all of us. But the rest of us are like real short, like 5'2", 5'3". So I was always called the tall one, because if they needed something reached out of a cupboard, even my mom couldn't reach it. She was in that 5'3" stature. But boy, though she was little, she was mighty. And she literally had the courage to pick up 6 girls and pull them out of a dangerous situation. And, people will say, gosh, that must have been so hard. But honestly, it was a lot less hard being with a single mom than it was staying in that dangerous situation. And it wasn't that my dad was the horrible guy. He just was an addict and needed to get his act cleaned up. And so by the grace of God, I was raised by a single mom with just a ton of heart and a ton of strength. And she taught us so many things. But the one thing I still say to my kids all the time, and I say it to my grandkids too, is we'd say different things about, but dad never this or dad never that, even at years after he had gotten cleaned up. And she'd say, Cindy, you cannot get from someone something that they literally don't have in their possession to give. And for whatever reason, she literally would say that too about different friends that would disappoint me, or teachers sometimes that didn't understand girls from a broken home, um, even church situations. And she just would say, you can't expect to get from somebody something that they don't have in their possession to give. And she was just never bitter. She always spoke of love and forgiveness. I think of my sister Debbie, who's the one that's gone on to heaven. And boy, did she, if I had one thing to say about my sister Debbie, she never judged a single person. And
Mm.
she just spoke life into me every time that we spoke. She would say stuff to me. And I remember as we started this journey, and it was extremely hard for me to try to figure out why are we being blessed like this, and is it okay to be blessed like this, and what do I do with these blessings? And she would just say, man, Cindy, for the longest time I knew you were chosen for something. She goes, I can just tell you're set apart. And she would speak those kinds of things into me where I'd think, how does she know that? How does she? But she somehow, because of her saying it, I'd have the courage to step into that next piece of my life. um, but going back to you, Cammie, I watched you become such a strong mom, and it came through adversity. You had that car accident where you had to fight with everything you had to get back your motor skills, and just you went through periods where friends, because you weren't the same Cammie with all those abilities to, score 40 points in a basketball game. Sadly, they kind of left you sitting on the bleachers and they went off with their life. And that's tough to do at age 16, 17. And yet those are the things I believe that have made you tenacious. And I also think those are the things that prepared you to walk away from things that were abusive and hard. And I've seen you and continue to see you grow and get stronger. And I'm just super proud of the way that you love your children, the way that you see things, the way that you tackle hard things. With your kids, and you tackle them head on, the way that you look for advice for them, the way that you aren't afraid to ask people who who have a situation in their life that you admire. You go to those people to see, how do I handle this? Or they have the training to help you know how to handle this. You don't just go to a friend and gossip and chat. You go to the right sources. You open your Bible and you seek knowledge from the source that is the only source that's really going to help you. And I've just been really proud to watch you grow into. And then honestly, you too have the gift of, I think I have the gift of encouragement. And to me, I love being able to, for years, I wanted to be able to give gifts, but we couldn't do that. And I couldn't even necessarily afford to make something. And if I could, I couldn't afford to ship it. So, there was just, I had to wait for that. But that passion that God had in my heart got to unfold. And I love sending gifts to different people who just need to pick me up. And I literally have a cabinet stored in my office of extra gifts, because I just never know when the Lord's going to, guide me to somebody who just needs something. And I don't have to worry about waiting for it to ship. I could open up my cabinet and see what I've got and pull things from there. And I love that. I mean, honestly, Cammie, the amount of times, that your children have, I'll say, did you get your mom a birthday gift? Oh no, can we come look in your cabinet? And so they come down, look at the cabinet. And it's precious, because I'm like, yes, they even know I have a cabinet. But I just think that's the things I think you definitely, when people think you're so much like your dad, you are. And not that your dad can't nurture, but we all know men aren't quite the nurturers that we wish they would be. And they're not even wired that way. And you have literally, from a little child up, been such a nurturer, and somebody who wants to take care of not just your children, but you're great at checking on your grandparents, and your sister and your brother love you and need you so much to be their cheerleader, because that's what they grew up with, and they need that, and they love that, and they're used to that, and they've been blessed by that. And so those things are all things that maybe other people would think were burdens, but you don't. You look at that and go, no, that's God's wired me that way, and I'm going to use that gift, especially to those people who God has literally placed in my life. And then others who come in and out of my life, you pour into them too. But you do a really good job of loving on and taking care of your family.
I I literally, Mom, I've never heard you tell that story about Aunt Debbie before. That's what I got so choked up about. I was like, no wonder why Stacy's so good at that. Her oldest, one of my favorite cousins in the whole wide world. But like, that is so cool. That's so cool. That was something I never heard. You guys, I love hearing stories, and the kids always are like, "Tell me a story. Tell me a story." That'll be when I get to tell them when they ask next time. Sorry, so it gets me choked up. I just never knew that about Aunt Debbie. I mean, she's so gentle and so sweet, but I just didn't know that. Mom, I promised we would take some questions from those that jump on live list. So I will let people load their questions in here in a minute, just because we'll take some of those. But you guys, I have to tell you a really cool story. So when I grew up, every birthday, every Christmas, it didn't matter. Whenever we got a gift, we had to write a thank you card. And I'm sure at the time it was like, oh my gosh, I don't want to write a thank you. And I remember you saying, Mom, well, then you must not want the gift, because if you want the gift, you have to send the thank you. And so it was Teacher Appreciation Week this week. And I asked each of my kids to send emails to their teachers, and Skylar sent them through my, and I saw Skylar's and it was like, Happy Teacher Appreciation Week. And I was like, oh no, sister, that does not count. I want you to talk to your teacher about something you appreciate about them. She was so annoyed, but she had to go back and do it. Yesterday, Mom, and I haven't sent them to you yet. I was going to wait till after the coffee chat this morning, but Landon actually forgot. My kid, who's like overachiever and does everything ahead of time and I don't have to double check, he actually forgot. And so he did it yesterday. And he wrote like a paragraph for each teacher. And I was so proud of him for that. And the messages he got back from those teachers were so precious. And Colton said he got the same one too. He goes, I'm their favorite now. I was like, see, aren't you glad that I made you do that? But Landon's also writing a paper for Bible right now that is talking about how God has been actively working in his life over the last couple months. And he has to do it early because he has some things he's doing on Monday that he won't be able to get it done. And I said, well, aren't you glad I make you tell me those things on a daily basis so you don't even have to think about it and you already know how to do that? It's just so cool to see some of those things that you've instilled in me, passed down to the kids, and already them reaping the benefits of that grateful heart, and just one that recognizes God's hand in our lives at work, even in the hard seasons, even in the hard seasons. It's such a gift that they're doing that at such a young age. So, all right, Mom, have you seen any good, do you want to start with that one right there?
Well, I saw somebody say something about what are you going to do after your grandchildren grow up? And I really believe, I mean, Cammie's kids are at that older stage. Kyler's just getting started. Kinsey will start soon too, I believe. So I pray that the Lord takes me with a lot of grandchildren around me, that I don't have to ask what happens next when all my grandchildren grow up. I just hope those grandchildren, I hope Landon, Colton, and Skylar start having grandkids before my other ones are completely grown up. So I just constantly have family around me, because that is, God gives us the desires of our hearts, and he has just implanted in me a love. I mean, a love for my family that is absolutely has to be from my upbringing, because my mom was like that, fully devoted. Every one of my sisters is so devoted to their family and their children and grandchildren. And I just know that that's just one of the France Hunt traits that now has become a Pentecost trait. And I'm honored to, carry that flag.
Oh, that's so good, Mom. All right, I'm gonna put questions out there, and then we can decide between us who's gonna answer them. The first one, this is more of a business question, but I'd say it's just a life question too. It says, where do manifestations, affirmations fall biblically? Mom, I'm gonna let you take that one. I might add to what you say, but I'm gonna let you take that one.
When ever so often, well, quite often, I'll get a message from somebody who's just really struggling with something. So before I answer it, I will literally pray for them, because God knows their situation just so intricately. But he will literally lay on my heart something to say to them, something to share with them. If it's a gift that I send, it will be because he said, such and such book, or open up the cabinet and I'll know exactly which one to go to. You have not because you ask not. Well, same with the wisdom and the ability to know how to respond to somebody. If you don't know how, ask him. He'll tell you how to respond. And I always get back they're blown away by me somehow speaking life into something that I honestly didn't even know about, but because what he told me to say. So that's where my affirmations come from, is praying for them first. They don't really need to hear my words. And when I'm hurting, I really don't need to hear people's words. I need to know what God literally needs my heart to hear. So that's what I want to do when I'm affirming somebody.
It's funny because I would say I do the exact same thing, especially. And here's what's interesting. And Mom, I think we did this together. We read Lisa Turkhurst, The Best Yes. And remember in that book where it gives you a little, she's like, when the Holy Spirit gives you a little prompting, you gotta answer that calling right then. And I think that's where I hear a lot of encouragement, and I drop what I'm doing if it's, or I write it down in a journal so I don't forget it, and I send that message. But on a personal level, you guys, when I was going through some really hard things in my marriage, I went and did like this intensive counseling session. And one of the things she made me do was go sit back in my hotel room, get out my journal, put on worship music, and simply ask the Lord, like, who do you say I am? What do you think about me? And I just had to sit and listen. And it was hard because, you want to do something or you're not hearing it. But I was just like journaling. And all of a sudden I started getting just these words, I am loved. I am stronger than I think I am. I am not alone. I have someone. And so I wrote those things down, and I would say those things out loud on a regular basis. And you guys, I really believe a biblical affirmation is something you see in the Bible that God says about us. And if you see it in the Bible, then write it down and speak it over yourself for sure. I think if God puts a dream on your heart, and I'm just going to turn it into a business thing right here. When I was at a space in my business where I was making more money, like sick money, like never could I ever think about asking for more ever. I remember really being stuck and not thinking, how could I ask for more? Because everybody kept asking me, what's next? What's next? And I was thinking, how selfish for me to ask what's next. I remember calling you, Mom, and I said, Mom, I can't even begin to ask for more when I feel like I've already been given so much. And you, without a bat of an eye, were like, Cammie, you don't think God needs people with money out there so that other people with money have someone they feel they can listen to and learn from? I was like, great point, Mom. And it was over. From that moment on, I was like, okay, Lord, I'm ready for that next level. I'm ready for more. I wouldn't say I've done that perfectly by any means, because I've definitely done it through striving on a number of times versus striding with my business. But I certainly have learned so many incredible lessons along the way of when I start being more self-reliant than I am God-reliant. And I would say affirmations work the same way.
And I think I probably said that to you, Cammie, because I had someone say that to me in a counseling session where I was just like, gosh, when is enough though? Seriously, enough. And that was said to me. And then I've watched, especially like your dad, go into relationships that he never would have had those doors open to him. And we've watched people come to the Lord through that relationship. But he never would have had that open door because he would never have been rubbing shoulders with people of that stature who sometimes don't even know what they need until they're around somebody who they're like, wow, what is different about him? And your dad does have that special quality that's just different about him. And so that's probably where that came from, Cammie, was learning that lesson myself.
Mom, I'm going to let you have this one. This is a great question. She says, this is my second Mother's Day without my mom. And she said, what has been some of the ways you've remembered and honored your mom on Mother's Day? How do you keep her memory alive?
Well, I don't know if you have siblings, but me and my sisters, because you'll find that same thing will happen to you on birthdays. My mom's been gone since 1981. And her birthday will come and go. My kids and Mark know it's in August, but they don't necessarily know it's August 27th. But there's 5 other people who know August 27th has a special meaning for us. So we will spend time in the morning sharing messages with each other and memories with each other. And there's just so much comfort in that. Also, like yesterday, I just felt like the Lord said, send my sister Lori yellow roses and say, in memory of Mom's favorite flower and in memory, a special tribute to you as such a good mom. And so it was really cool to be able to just, kind of, I got to send some flowers, not to mom, but it felt like I was sending flowers to my mom. There's just things that you and you alone and those siblings you have will know about that. And it's just really special. Now, today, I'm not really much of a poster, but some of you are, and you could make a special post about it, just a tribute to your mom. But I think mostly sharing those things with your children, your grandchildren, but with those people who literally are going to be missing her too. And it will get easier, trust me. And I mean, forever, I've just known there was no one more deserving of going to heaven than my mom. So from the moment she did pass at an early age, I was like, he chose her because he couldn't stand to be away from her anymore. I know that because we can't stand to be away from her. So there's just a celebration for me too, and always has been.
One thing I would say, just answering that, because as you asked to keep her memory alive, like, I want you guys to know, apparently I was about a year old when my grandma passed away. And so I don't know her personally, but I feel like I know her through the practice of remembering that I've heard my mom, my aunts talk about my grandma and her strengths and even in her weaknesses, um, you know, the lessons they learned in those things. And so, one of my favorite things, Mom, when we went to Prince Edward Island was some of those car trips we were in, getting to different places, and you just telling me stories of growing up about your mom and just how strong she was, and her faith was so strong. And those things I'll never forget. And I think, you guys, when in the Bible, the Lord is constantly in the Old Testament impressing upon the Israelites the power of remembering the good and the bad. The bad, so we don't go back to the bad because we know what those consequences bring, but also the good, because that's how we keep those things alive. And I think that's such a powerful part of even people that meant so much to us, sharing
Mm-hmm.
over and over. And you guys, there's times where I get on this like tailspin of, oh, I probably haven't told my kids enough of God's faithfulness in my life. And so I got to tell them these stories, and I'll start telling them the stories that I think they need to hear. And they'll be like, Mom, we know that's when that. Mom, remember? Yes, you told us that. We know. And they know the details. They know the lessons I felt like I learned. And so that's okay if you sound repetitive. You want them to have those things just like on their mind, right? So that's what they remember when they think of that person, or when they think, oh, now I know why Grammy is that way. Her mom was that way, or now I know why my mom is that way. It's really cute.
Yeah.
Mom, I'm going to ask another question. Godly humility. This is a business question. Godly humility in business. I see a lot of business owners operating in pride, and it seems to serve them well. But I want to always stay submitted to Christ in my business for his glory, not mine.
Okay, first of all, when you know where it comes from,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it doesn't take a genius to look at Mark and I and know we didn't have the training, we didn't have the education. I'm a high school graduate. I'm a smart girl, but I was super content to get married at 18 and start having my babies. Um, and I think it's just really important, and it's always been, there's this, when you talk about how God would be blessing someone, but then when they became disobedient or became prideful, he would warn them, he would give them lessons that they could learn and turn back to him. But if they didn't, he'd pick up that blessing and he would give it to someone else. And we have said from the beginning, there's no doubt where this idea even came from. When we were asked about this, we prayed about it and we heard yes, and we were like, really? No, Mark wasn't so much really, but I was going, really? And I would have said that probably louder had I known what he had in store. But I think constantly, as it goes from here to here to here to, exceedingly abundantly more than we ever would have asked or imagined, it is so from God. And if we keep our hearts close to the source, and if we abide there, knowing literally we're the branch, he's the tree and we're the branch, and boy, if we come apart from that, game over. Mm-hmm. So the humility, I believe, comes from knowing this is all God's, and it's his to do with what he chooses to do with and through whom he chooses to do it. So if you remain humble and you constantly, sometimes he does bless you a lot. Well, with those blessings, Mark and I have been able to do things we never thought possible. Never, never, never. And we can say yes as quick as we snap our fingers because he's blessed us so much. But it wasn't it was for us because he wanted to bless us, but it was for us to then keep our hands open so we could give it to who was going to,
Mhm.
he knew who was going to be coming to us through the years needing something. And we were able to say yes. So that humility just comes from knowing it absolutely is not ours. It is the Lord's. And we don't forget that.
I will just comment on that too, Mom, and say for those that you see outside that seem to be full of pride and arrogance, but yet you feel like they are being blessed, at least blessed according to human standards.
That's right.
Remember, you don't know what's going on behind the scenes. You don't know what's happening in the behind the closed doors. But also at the end of our lives, we're all going to go to heaven and have to answer to God for things. And sometimes, like, I don't know if you guys have been on my coffee chat this week, but I said you were made to do big things. But sometimes the big things aren't necessarily big things according to the world's eyes. They might be big things according to spiritual perspective, but not earthly perspective. And so I think keep that in mind too, because a lot of times when I hear King Solomon in the Bible going, it's meaningless, everything is meaningless. Like even the people that are seeming to be being rewarded, it could be all empty. It could be of zero value and zero significance and zero fulfillment. So you just don't know. But all you can do is keep yourself in check. And one of the practical ways that I like to give credit to where credit is due. I love what you said, Mom, about that is tithing. You guys, it is not, I am not giving God a 10%. It is his 100%. And he only asked for 10%. And so I try to make sure. And then, like you said, Mom, the minute he puts something on my heart, I try to jump to and be obedient. Even if I think it'd be nice to have that in the bank, knowing that if he even cares about the sparrows who have no value, he's going to care that much more about me.
That's right.
I love this question. There's a girl named Catherine on here, and I apologize, you guys. I don't know Instagram handles very well, especially since the names can be very different. But I don't know if she's a single mom, but she's getting ready to, go for a big goal in her business, and she has a young child, and so she just feels like her time is really limited, and she's wondering how she can make best use of that time and go for this big goal. Mom, do you mind if I take that one first?
Nope.
Okay, so when I hear that, I was thinking about how challenging this season of quarantine has been from a standpoint of I'm still working full time and then I have my kids at home doing homeschool full time. And really having an itinerary every morning when we woke up was really, really important. Also, waking up before them in the morning. Now, here's depending on the age of your kid, waking up before they do sometimes can be a challenge because just when they've been waking up at 7 every day and so you start waking up at 5:30 or 6, they start waking up at 5. So I do know that happens, but the more intentional you can be with your calendar, the better. And one thing I've been learning is not just like planning when we get up and have our family devotional and that kind of thing, but I'm also planning like FaceTimes with people we haven't talked to in a while, or I'm planning their chores for the day because otherwise we argue about, oh, I took the dogs out last. So maybe Monday, Landon has dogs all day. Monday, Skylar empties the dishwasher every time it needs to be, and Colton takes the trash out every time. Just being very, very intentional with every bit of your time. And then here's what I want to remind you. When it's the Holy Spirit, the power of God working within you, I think of the fish and the loaf example. I think of David and Goliath. I think of those times where I think of Gideon. He's known to be this weak, lack of confidence kind of person, and God uses him with only an army of 300, mind you, to go against the Midianites, and they win. And I think that's when we have to realize that God loves nothing more than to give the underdog the upper advantage, because that's how we know without a shadow of a doubt that it was his power at work within us. When we know that it was not out of our own resources or our own abilities that he was able to shine in that season. So I would say, like, surrender your promotion to God and then call on him every morning to be with you in this promotion. We can make plans, but he directs our steps. We can do everything within our power to set things in line, but then to activate his power within us, so that if there's 5,000 people around you and you need to feed them all, but you only have a few fish and some bread, that he's going to empower you to feed the whole 5,000. And you just have to give what you can and trust him with the results, but be consistent and be intentional with that time that you have. Okay, Mom, now I'll see if you have anything to add to that.
The only thing I was going to add was, I think sometimes in this season we do so much for our children And if we include them in the conversation about this is what I'm doing and this is why, but we don't need our children's permission. If the Lord's telling us this is the time to do something, we need to do it, and be very intentional with the times that we have with our kids to make a great time. I think about my mom worked 9 to 5 every day. So she'd leave at 7, or 8 to 5. So she'd leave at 7, she'd get home at 6:30. But at Christmas time, the day after Thanksgiving, she went directly from that job to Sears. And we only saw her on Sundays. But yet we did our crafts, we put the tree up, she did the snow stuff on the window. She kept thinking, but we knew we didn't see her during that time. I don't remember that being a hardship. I remember that being where she called on us to come together, and it was going to make Christmas a better Christmas. And it wasn't, we just knew this is what she has to do. The guilt she must have carried from that, the pain she must have been taken on to go, how can I do this? But you know what? I don't have one negative memory of that. And we sometimes put so much false guilt on ourselves, especially as women. So I just want you to know, if he calls you to do something and he provides the time to do it and a way to do it, even if it seems like this can't be, sometimes you got to trust your gut and go for it.
I love that. You guys, I want to tell you something crazy. When, the mom guilt is so real. And I remember very early on in my successful years in my business, I started having just this tremendous guilt that I would never be a good mom. Now, it didn't help that I probably had some things in my ear adding to that belief. Love how the enemy loves to play on and really pick at the scab that we already feel. But, I seriously just had this picture of what a great mom was in my head. And my picture was of you, Mom. And I remember thinking she was there every morning when we woke up. She was there every day when we got home from school. She was at every volunteer opportunity in the classroom. Sometimes I don't even love to do those things. But, you guys, when my mom and dad were going through their heyday in their business and making a money run, my dad was not at my games, but my mom was in every stand of every game. And I'm just thinking of all these things that she did. And I was like, I'll never measure up to that. But then just in such a sweet way, God said to me one day, I never asked you to be a Cindy mom. I asked you to be a Cammie mom. And a Cammie mom is very different. And what I've noticed is my kids get the Cindy mom through their grandma, and they get the Cammie mom through their mom. And just because it's different, I love hearing what Mom said. She never has a memory of anger or frustration or Mom, you weren't there enough. You guys, I missed my son's 13th birthday on his birthday. And we talked about it before I went. And he, with full permission, said, Mom, go. We'll celebrate another time. And so, when we go around the table and people say things about what they love about each other, the one thing my kids say about me is how hard I work for them. What a great example, how much I love them, how much I'm there for them, how much fun we have. They don't think of the times where I'm in my office till all hours and they're starving and I'm like, make your own food. They don't point those things out. And so I think you have to just realize that it is mom guilt that covers more. But as you pray and seek the Lord for the direction you're going to go, he will empower you, but he will also make the way where you feel like the things are going to come against you. And I'm not saying things aren't going to come against you. The Bible doesn't say no weapon formed against you will prosper, that no weapons will be formed. No, weapons are going to be formed. He just said they wouldn't prosper. And so I definitely had people accusing me, you're so neglecting, you're never there, you're a workaholic, you work all the time. My kids don't think like that. My kids don't say those things about their mom. And I'm not saying there haven't been times where work has gotten out of control. I'm not saying that. But even those weapons formed against me didn't prosper. And they're not going to prosper. And so keep praying that prayer over yourself as you seek to be the best version of yourself you can be in this process. But, okay, Mom, this is a really good one. And I know we don't have a lot of time for a ton more, but how do you introduce your kid to know about Jesus, like a preteen? He knows a little, but doesn't truly understand and gets frustrated with me sometimes.
Well,
isn't that a good one?
It is good. I started with my kids so young, but I still knew at some point they're going to have to choose for themselves. And I will tell you, even there were patches where my kids were on the straight and narrow and took a hard left, and I was like, didn't see that coming. But they had they had the truth grounded in them. I think you can be careful with like the music you're playing in your car. With there's such good worship music, and kids really will like that kind of worship music. You can be filling their soul with that stuff. You can have around your house little places where you put verses, and when they go in, you're not preaching at them, but they're seeing it. There's no way they're not seeing it if it's on a bathroom mirror or whatever. You don't have to put it on their pillow and on their mirror, but you can have things around your house that absolutely are speaking truth. You just, and then I don't know if you go to church. You don't have to force them into going into the youth group service, but sitting in yours. Or there's so many good online, and if they're like, I just don't want to go to church. Okay, well, pick one of these. You can listen to any of these. Which one would you like to listen to? Make it a trade value thing. Even when we were trying to teach our kids about money, we paid them to go and listen to Dave Ramsey, and because they wanted the $50, they said yes. Now they loved it. They got a hold of those principles that because somebody else was teaching them, they took a whole lot more from it. You can do the same thing. You can reward your young teen. What did you want? You wanted $20? Okay, you can have $20, but you have to listen to this with me, and you got to be fully in and even take some notes. I would get creative, but push the buttons that push them.
Oh, Mom, I love that. And it reminds me, it's so funny to hear you say that. Landon and two of his friends, they're like 14, 15 years old, and I paid them money. I said, I will give you $100 to listen to this sermon and tell me your ahas from it. And I didn't even realize that I did that. But I did have a friend tell me once that just like people pay their kids allowance, she would pay her kids for reading personal development books and writing a little paper on it. And I thought that's so cool to get that good stuff in them. But same way with, the only other thing I'd say is if you've never read the book, Power of a Praying Parent by Stormy O'Martian, I think is the author, pick that up yourself. And even if there's one for Power of a Praying Parent of adult children. So, there's a couple different issues there that you could look through. But, even after I read it, I would keep that in my devotional pile, and I would read one of those prayers over my kids like every single day. And so I once heard moms that played worship music in their kids' bedrooms when they were off at school, just anything and everything you can. You can walk around your house and pray for your home and that the Holy Spirit would reign in that home. I mean, there's so many things like that we can do that really submit our home and our families to the Lord. And then we just have to trust that He wants that relationship with our children more than we want that relationship. So if you do your part and trust God to make that revelation real in their child's life, heck, they may be in an elevator one day and the whole thing breaks down. The whole thing breaks down and they get stranded in there until they submit to the Lord. I'm telling you, He will stop at nothing to get your attention. Even if you're frantic and busy and sometimes too busy to sit down and just ask the Lord what He is requiring of you that day, He will get your attention. So